Okay, now I'd like to show what I did in the equipment compartment and why I did it. Just remove the cover here, this part of the fuselage. I have need of 12 volts, but I'm going to fly with a 4S battery, which gives me 16 volts. I need 12 volts for the LED lights that I'm going to put on the fuselage and the wings and the tail section. And I need 12 volts for the low main transmitter. And there may be another device I may add another piece of equipment to the plane. So I need 12 volts. And I get 16 volts from the battery. I don't want to have a separate battery. So what I've done is I have made a way to step down the 16 volt battery voltage to 12 volts and distribute it in a reasonable way. To distribute it, I have used terminal strips because I don't like soldering together a bunch of wires into a big glob to distribute power. With terminal strips, I have nice, neat connections, and if I need to change something later, it's easily done. So I bought 3 terminal strips from Radio Shack, and let's see if I happen to have another one handy. Yes. They come with this connector bar, and actually I cut the connector bar here so that I can distribute 4 connections of positive voltage and 4 connections of negative voltage for each terminal strip. They're inexpensive, easy to use, and I've got 3 of them. The first one is the main pack voltage, the main battery voltage. I take that Dean's connector from the battery to the terminal strip. From the terminal strip, I go to the current sensor data logger. I'm using EagleTree OSD Pro system, and this distributes power to the speed control. And then I get my power, my 16 volts, which needs to be stepped down to 12 volts. I couldn't find an inexpensive data voltage regulator. So I went to Hobby King and found these UBECs. They provide 12 volts, but only at 2.5 amps. I measured my current requirements with an ammeter with the lights on and the transmitter going, and decided that I needed about 4 amps. These give 2.5 amps, so I got 2 of them. Wired in parallel, provide 12 volts and 5 amps. I run them from the main terminal strip to a secondary terminal strip, which gives me unswitched 12 volts, 12 volt power. And I made a nice, neat little label there, UBEC 12 volts. I've got this label maker. Why not use it? Put nice labels on things. From the unswitched 12 volt terminal strip, I have a Dean's mini plug, which I use to go to my transmitter. Have a matching 12 volt or matching mini connector there to plug up. And now I want power for my LED lights, which I want to put on a switch. The gear switch, as a matter of fact. So I've used this Turnigy receiver controlled switch, plugged it into the gear port, and one side goes to my unswitched 12 volt terminal strip. The other side takes that positive switched voltage and puts it into this terminal strip, where I can take off as many switched 12 volt connections as I need. In this case, right at the moment, I need 3. I have 1 pair of wires coming down here to connect to the LEDs that will go on the bottom of the fuselage and up to the tail. I have 2 more pairs of wires, also on Dean's mini plugs, which will go to each wing. I'll show you the wings here just to give you an idea of what I've done. Well, here's my wing. Dean's mini plug will connect to one of those coming out of the top, and you probably can't see it on the video too well, but I've used a glob of hot glue after I soldered on the wires to the LED strips. And the hot glue just gives a little bit of strain relief to keep the wires from fatiguing and the connections from being strained, the LED strip wired soldered connections. And distribute power all over the wings, and even the ailerons and flaps, and a little wire going across the top and distributing power to the top. And you might ask, is that going to affect the aerodynamics of the wing? I'm sure it does. A little bit. I'm sure I'm losing a little bit of lift, but I do have flaps, so I can gain back that lift in landing if I want to slow the plane down. But that's what I've done with the wing. And I've also done a commensurate thing on the tail section. LED strips, Dean's connector, and a little blob of hot glue to keep it from being strained. One last thing that I've done in my main equipment compartment, put Velcro on my current sensor data logger, hold it in place, and I have Velcro on my receiver, and I have Velcro on the OSD Pro Eagle Tree thing. I'll put corresponding Velcro strips somewhere in here once I decide exactly where I want to position those units. And finally, I'll use these cable tie-down things to try to hold the cables together, because it's going to become quite a rat's nest once I add in the Eagle Tree stuff, the servo connectors, and the sensors for the Eagle Tree. It's going to be quite messy in there, so I'm going to attempt to keep things neat by using these handy dandy little cable ties. And that's what I've done with my equipment compartment and the electronics inside.